I'll skip ahead here to something he said at the end. He criticized our culture for us being too specialized. Used to be, in the old days, that everybody could do everything that there was to do. Yeah, when we fucking lived in caves.
Right.
And our lifespan was 30.
And even then, I'm betting that's just not true. I'm betting some cavemen were recognized at being better at some things than other cavemen. I bet you fucking anything.
Right.
But because he's in the middle of this sustained attack on thinking clearly about stuff, he has to go on to attack people focusing on certain areas to be particularly good at.
Right. Now, does it strike anybody odd that he's complaining about that and is a PhD in something?
I don't know what he's a PhD in.
Well, whatever it is, he's focused on that, hasn't he?
Piled higher.
Is he also an astrophysicist? Is he also...
I don't know.
Is he everything?
That's a damn good question.
I see your point, yeah.
Don't know. Yes.
Every time I hear one of these guys talk about things that, like this good old days view of the world, I always want to ask him exactly what point in time are you talking about? Because as far as I'm aware, throughout recorded history, and even with the inferences we've made about pre-recorded history, you've got specializations. You had, cavemen who were the hunters, and cavemen who gathered plants, and cavemen who did the cleaning and cooking. Those specific types of things were out there. But any time in recorded history, even in the Bible, different people did different jobs. There were different...
Yeah, I don't know what the hell this was all about, but
this romanticized
was
view
everybody
of...
the Pope.
They thought this was so important they had to have him be their first speaker. And they talked him up a lot. There were like two introductions for him before he got up.
Yeah. Of course, if you're talking about recorded history, that's obviously going to be the case because the people who do the recording are literate, and being literate at one time was a very specialized thing to be. If you want a really long view of history, you kind of can't do better than Jared Diamond and with Guns, Germs, and Steel, where basically he kind of makes the case that before people specialized, it was because all their energy was devoted to finding enough food to keep them alive all the time.
Right.
And it was only when we figured out how to actually stockpile food and grow it ourselves efficiently that people started being freed up to do things like think of newer and better ways to live.
Yeah.
And it was those specialists that moved us forward out of basically primitive, you could die at any minute if you don't starve to death kind of culture.
Well, Yogi Algan disagrees with you.
Well, he
thinks we need to go back to whatever kind of culture we can have when everybody is able to be good at everything there is to do.
Wow.
He pretty much said so. Okay, so he wrapped up. Oh, God. He wrapped up telling this little story about the king who wanted to know whether who was more important to his kingdom. Was it the Sufis, who were the spiritual people, or was it the Gnostics, who were the learned people, according to his story? Already my eyebrow goes up and says, "Is this historical?" So he tells us. Here's the story. So the king invites the Gnostics to a big dinner.
Right.
And they come trooping in, and he says, "Are you guys really? Do you think you're like the most important people in my kingdom?" And they say, "Oh yes, it's very important to have the learning and the knowledge and the understanding." He says, "Okay, fine, sit down." And he feeds them their feast. Only he equips them all with gigantic cutlery, like spoons bigger than somebody's head and giant forks and things, and the Gnostics struggle with this stuff and aren't able to understand it and aren't wind up not being able to eat their meal. Right?
Why didn't they just say,
"So then,
yo, king, can I have a smaller spoon?"
I don't know. Apparently, if you're the implication already is that it's the stop trying to know things argument, right? If you know too much about stuff, then when you encounter simple little goofy things like spoons and forks that are too big, you'll be completely puzzled and unable to make any kind of decision. So then the Sufis come in, And they come in single file, and they're stepping in each other's footsteps as if they're all really just one person. And the king asks the one in front, "Are you really, really important to my kingdom?" And the Sufi in front says, "Well, I don't know about that, but I think the guy behind me is really, really important." And then the next guy says the same thing, and the next guy says the same thing, and they all basically dodge the fucking question. And the last guy says, "I think the guy who's the most important is somewhere else." So they sit down, and they get the big cutlery, and they immediately start feeding each other with the giant cutlery because they're able to maneuver it to where they can feed one another with the giant spoons and forks.
See, I thought I knew what was coming. I figured he was trying to point out that, these knowledgeable people were confused by the large cutlery.
Yeah.
And then these more wise people sat down and just ate with their fucking hands. That makes a lot more sense if you're going to do it. But they mystically knew how to use the large cutlery to feed each other.
So this story is completely freaking
Are you sure they were
stupid.
giant spoons? Are you sure they weren't like really long spoons? Because
he described them as giant spoons.
Then I think he screwed up the story.
I think he screwed up
the
story too.
Certainly, I agree with you all. It's massively dumb. You know what else it is?
What?
It has exactly the structure of a Polish joke. Right? It's a completely concocted, made-up situation to put two different kinds of people in, and the one that you don't like comes out as an utter moron.
Right.
Not because it's likely that they would really behave that way, but because that's the point of the story. He told a Polish joke about people that actually bother trying to have knowledge about stuff.
Right.
How many yogic masters does it take to tell a story properly?
Well, more than one, apparently. So at the end, there was a question and answer session, and there was one question, and my partner asked it.
Yeah.
Good.
Immediately, the hand went up, and it's the question was: look, you keep saying that ancient spiritual wisdom is timeless and true always. How do you explain how long we had slavery? Right?
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
And he completely fucking dodged it. His response was, people who are racists, they're racists because that's an assumption that they've made about people that they've had for a long time, and that they find it difficult to get over it. What? Dodge the fucking question! Dude, you are the representative of ancient spiritual wisdom trying to tell us it's always good every time, everywhere, that is its strength, right? You got busy attacking science for not being true every time, everywhere, because scientific discoveries change. Some of them. But you claimed that spiritual wisdom, ancient spiritual wisdom, is good because it transcends time. It's true it's true forever.
Right.
And here is a piece of ancient spiritual fucking wisdom that we know now is crap, and your job is to explain it. Dodged the damn question.
It's in the Bible.
Yeah. So we got out of there. I said there was a break scheduled, and I turned and said, "If you had enough of this, I've had enough." We said, "Yeah." Here is what else they had on the schedule. Avril Seal, a Baha'i writer and editor, with his presentation, Fractals, the Patterns of Physical and Spiritual Creation. I'm sorry, I could not sit there and listen to some dipshit trying to mystify fractals. Then another break, and then
Have
John...
you ever talked to a Baha'i, by the way?
No.
Baha'i are these people whose spiritual belief is every religion is right.
Yeah.
Except not having a religion.
He is a dumbass. John Bloom, Buddhist astronomer, astrophysicist, on The Astounding Universe, Return to the Mystical.
Well, if you can't even parse the title of the talk, I mean, that's going to be difficult to deal with.
Apparently, if
Is
you're
there
an
a
astronomer
comma somewhere,
and you
or
find
a
the universe really
period
astounding,
was dropped?
that's the same as justification for mysticism.
Oh, wow.